Hey, what is up, everyone? This is Music Tech Help Guy, and welcome to another Logic Pro 11 tutorial. I know I've been doing a lot of stem splitter videos lately. Don't worry, I'm not going to be doing only stem splitter stuff. I have some other tutorials in the works as well, but the reason why I'm so excited about stem splitter is not just because it allows you to rebalance your songs or rip a vocal or an instrumental from a song. Those are probably the first things you might think of when it comes to stem source separation. However, another thing you might not have thought about is that Stem Splitter gives you the ability to pull a stem from a fully mixed track, and then maybe you're not necessarily going to use the sound of the stem itself, but rather use it as a trigger to introduce other elements in a mix. So for me, this is an incredible remastering tool. In this video, I'm going to show you 3 different techniques. The first 2 have to do with drum sample replacement, and the third has to do with enhancing vocals and additional effects in a stereo mix. So all of these techniques will assume that we don't have the original multi-track session for a song, but maybe you have a client that needs their song remastered, or you want to remaster an old song from your band or a personal song of yours. Maybe there were some elements in that original release that you didn't like and that you want to correct in the remaster. This is an additional layer of what Stem Splitter can do, even if you're not a DJ or remixing type of producer. Now, before I get into the tutorial, I've got to quickly tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Boombox. If you're a music producer or mixing engineer like me, you'll really love the collaboration and commenting tools that Boombox.io has to offer. With Boombox, you can upload finished tracks to your clients or share stems or multi-tracks with the batch upload feature. You can even upload full DAW sessions using the Sync app for macOS. Invite your clients as collaborators who can then leave timestamped feedback on their tracks. Make revisions to the tracks based on your client's feedback, and then upload new versions of the track until it's finished. Head over to boombox.io today and sign up to get 4 gigabytes of free storage. Okay, so this first technique will allow us to apply drum replacement to a stereo mixed file using all stock Logic tools. So the first thing we need to do is we need to use Stem Splitter on the track. This is an old song from my band. This one's not quite as old as the ones in my other Stem Splitter videos, but there's one key thing I don't like about these recordings, and that is the snare drum came out really flat. And, you know, it's not like an incredible drum sound, but, you know, it was recorded in a bedroom. So I don't know. I didn't set the compressor right on it. And so the snare drum in the song just sounds like it's just really flat. Like it doesn't have any punch or body to it.
In a world where seduction reigns, a woman's power is strong. She came to me in a dream. She had midnight hair and deep blue eyes. She looked at me and said, I'll never let you go. One day.
Yeah, so the snare drum, like it's almost like I'm hearing more of the reverb from the snare than I am, you know, the dry signal of the snare. And I want to correct that in a remaster. Let's get into Stem Splitter. So I'm just going to right click or control click, go down to processing, choose Stem Splitter, or if you've recently used it, it'll show up here at the top. And I only want the drums from this. So let's split out that drum stem. And our drum stem doesn't necessarily need to be in a track stack. So I'm going to go ahead and just pull that out of the track stack. Let's delete the track stack. And then we also need to bring back in the original track. So I'm going to select it, hit Control M to unmute it. And there we go. So for now, we just need to hear the drums. Okay, so the next step is we need to isolate just the drum from the drum stem that we want to use as a trigger for our sample replacement. Now, there's a slow way and a quick way to do this. The slow ways, you can start by turning on flex time, go to that track, turn on flex on that track, put it in slicing mode, and then you can right click or control click up here and select slice at transient markers, and then you just delete everything that's not a snare or not a kick or not a tom, whatever it is that you're trying to replace. A quicker way where you don't even have to turn on flex time is if you go up to your key commands, go to edit assignments, and search up search up slice, and you'll see that there is a key command for slice at transient markers. Now, I've already learned a custom key command here, but by default, there is no key command here. So the one I usually use for this is Shift Option Command T. So you just click Learn by Key Position, and then press Shift Option Command T. And what this will do is you can just select that region and hit Shift Option Command T, and it slices the entire thing at the transients without having to even use flex time. Now, this starts off with just kick drum, and I think the kick drum's okay here. So right there is where the snare comes in, and this is where the the not so fun part starts, because you've got to go through and you've got to delete everything that's not a snare drum or not a kick drum or not a tom. Again, whatever you're trying to replace. Whoops, I made a mistake there. Yes, those are both kicks. And this is a pretty simple, like, just 4-beat. So this isn't too hard to sort of follow along. And then I get over here and I've got some double bass going on. And then there's a little fill in there with the snare. And the other thing you could do, too, is if you're really trying to get everything separated, you could drag some of these down to other tracks. Like if I wanted to do snare and toms, you could separate the toms down to another track. But I'm not going to do that for this. I'm just going to do snare. What I'm going to do, so that I don't waste too much time here on screen, is I'm going to go through and I'm going to remove everything that is not a snare, and then I'll essentially just have a bunch of short audio regions with all of the snare hits. And it's okay if there's other sounds in there. We're not actually going to be using the audio itself. We're just going to, like I said, we're just going to be using it as a trigger. So I'm going to go through the rest of this off screen and I'll be right back. Okay, so all in all, that took about 20 minutes to go through and just isolate all of the snare hits. And, if I play this with the track, you're going to hear the snare drum a little bit louder now because, we've got this extra track here adding another sample aligned layer.
Is this your everlasting love? It's the lie to me.
The thing is, that layer is not very clean. It's going to have kick in there. Sometimes it's got hi-hat. Sometimes it's got crash cymbals in there. And you're also hearing a little pop or click at the end of each of the regions. So what I recommend doing at this point is select that whole track. Go up to your region inspector and create a fade out all the way. You can do it all the way. And the thing is, as long as you only have one note per region, it's not going to matter what the region length is. We're just getting rid of all this extra tail, and it also helps hide some other elements like the cymbals and whatnot from coming through. So then what I can do is I can, with the whole track selected, press J, and this will join the entire track. So now what I have is essentially an isolated snare track from the original song. Like I said, I'm probably not going to use any of the original snare. I'm just going to sample replace this. So Logic has a drum replacement tool built right in. If you select a region and press Control D, this will bring up Logic's drum replacement and doubling tool. So you choose what instrument you want to replace, choose replacement or doubling. You can choose what trigger note you want. I'm going to choose auto, which is probably going to make it D1, and then you click OK. And then what Logic does is it analyzes the transients in that audio recording and converts it into MIDI notes. So now I can just kind of hide this track and just stick with my MIDI region here. Now, Logic is pretty skimpy with its velocity values for drum replacement, so I almost always just hold Option and set this to 127, and then if I really need to go through and dial in some of the velocities manually, I can do that. But now what's going to happen is it's going to play a sampler snare drum along with the original track.
Very strong. She came to me in a dream.
I've got pre-fader metering on. We don't need that.
She had midnight hair and deep blue eyes. She looked at me.
Now, I don't really like that snare sound too much, so let's remove sampler. Let's add drum kit designer in here, or whatever your favorite drum instrument is. And then what I can do is find a snare drum that I like from Logic's library, kind of like that one. There we go. I like that one.
In a world where seduction reigns, a woman's power is strong. She came to me in a dream. She had midnight hair and deep blue eyes. She looked at me and said, I'll never let you go. One day.
And then you just mix and blend that track into your master, and then you've brought out the snare in the mix with something that sounds way better than the original recording. You could really hear it when I muted the sample replacement track, how flat and just missing the snare is from this mix. And again, you can use whatever drum instrument you want, use a third-party instrument, use custom samples, whatever you want to do, you can do it. But this just allows you to sort of get that information out of the original stereo file. Okay, so my second technique, this is going to use some third-party plugins, but the upside is it's going to move a lot faster because you don't have to do all that manual editing. So first and foremost, we'll just start off by stem splitting out the drums, just like we did last time. And I'm going to load up a third-party plugin from UVI, and this is called Drum Replacer. Now, the reason why Drum Replacer is so great for this is it has a separation module that can sort of source separate a stereo drum file. And so it can essentially isolate the kick, or it can isolate the snare from the rest of the recording. And since we already have an isolated drum stem now because of Stem Splitter, this makes it a heck of a lot easier. So what I typically will do here is just click learn and then play some of the track. So now once it has learned that track, I can click monitor, and then you've got these 6 different options up here, root, and I guess different harmonics or different elements. And you can start muting these or bringing these in, and you'll start hearing certain elements of the kit disappear. Like the kick drum could be isolated, or the snare drum could be isolated. So 3 there could be helpful if I really wanted to isolate just the kick, and then 4 I think is the snare. Okay, so what's important here is not necessarily the quality of that monitoring, but it's the fact that we can isolate those snare drums, and we can pull down this green line, and this will essentially create a trigger event. So you can see only the snare drums are triggering a trigger event. And then what you can do is you can find, whatever your favorite drum sample library is. Grab a few alternating samples and drop them in here. Set the mode to sequence so it plays them, 1 through 6 in that order. I also like to hold shift and pull up the polyphony on one of these, and it pulls up the polyphony on each voice. And now, every single time one of these little red lines shows up, you're going to hear an instance of one of those snare samples. Now, the thing is, we don't need to hear the dry signal. We just need to hear the wet signal, just the sample replacement. And then what I can do is, just like before, blend that back into the original recording.
In a world where seduction reigns, a woman's power is strong. She came to me in a dream. She had midnight hair and deep blue eyes. She looked at me and said, I'll never let you go. I'll take the love from you, embracing all you know. Is this your everlasting love? It's the lie to me.
Now, the goal here is not to make, the snare drum super noticeable in the mix. You just want to, blend it in so that a listener who's listened to the old version will listen to this and say, oh, that sounds better, but they can't quite pinpoint what is better about it. They can't quite pinpoint the mistake from before. You'll be able to, because you can hear the before and after, but you don't want that sample replacement to be so loud in the mix that it becomes a distraction. It's just an enhancement, not a distraction. This last technique I want to show you has nothing to do with drum replacement. This actually has to do with isolating vocals from a song and then enhancing those vocals. One of the things I don't like about this song is that in the choruses and pre-choruses, I'd like the vocals to have some more effects on them. Maybe some longer reverbs, maybe some other time-based effects like some choruses and whatnot. So what you can do is stem split just the vocals. And again, the quality of the vocal is not really as important here because we're not going to be using any of the dry signal of the vocal stem. And what I'm going to do is just mute both of these for now. And so here we go. Here's our vocal rip.
In a world where seduction reigns, a woman's power is strong. She came to me in a dream. She had midnight hair and deep blue eyes. She looked at me.
So here's like the pre-chorus section. And yes, the song is about a hot vampire woman stealing your soul in the middle of the night. So I want something a little more exotic sounding on the pre-choruses as well. So what I could do is add whatever reverb I want on here or whatever time-based effect I want on here. Let's go ahead and use ROM from Native Instruments. And we're going to use this at 100% because, again, the goal is not to hear the dry signal. It's to add something that wasn't originally there. And then you can blend that into the mix just like we did with the drum samples.
And deep blue eyes. She looked at me and said, I'll never let you go. I'll take the love from you, embracing all you know. Is this your everlasting?
And I don't want it here, so I'll cut that out. And let's come over to the verse here, or the chorus.
This is my last goodbye. This is my living will. This is my last goodbye. This is my.
Just got to find that part where the chorus jumps in there. Now, let's say for the chorus here, we don't want all this reverb, but we do want sort of a vocal thickening effect. So let's duplicate that track. Let's pull this down here. And on this track, instead of having ROM, we'll add something else. I'll add the Howard Benson vocal multiplier, for example. And then what I can do is dial in a setting I like to enhance the vocals.
This is my last goodbye, this is my living will. I'll leave you with my pride. I know that this relationship will haunt you for the rest of your life. This is my hope, this is my want, this is my need, this is my vindication haunting you.
So I've got my vocal reverb enhance and my vocal thicken enhance. And let's see what that sounds like in the mix.
This is my last goodbye, this is my living will. I'll leave you with my pride. I know that this relationship will haunt you for the rest of your life. This is my hope, this is my want, this is my need, this is my vindication haunting you.
So I think you get the point. So you can repeat this process for any section of the song with any effect that you want, for really any time-based effect, and you're just going to set the blend to 100%, and you have these additional sort of time-based tracks that you can blend into the original. Again, the goal here is not to hear the effect like way out front. It's only to maybe improve the vocals or make them sound better by 5 or 10%. You know, remastering is not completely deconstructing a song and then putting it back together. You know, that's not really what remastering is all about. You kind of have to work with what you have. And Stem Splitter just gives us another way we can work with what we have and get great results. And these techniques can be tailored to any instrument, really. You know, if you want to pull out the bass and enhance the bass, if you want to pull out the kick drum or pull out the toms, you can do that as well. So there's a lot of different options and a lot of different things you can do with this. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to see more content like this. As always, thank you so much for the support, and thanks for watching.